To be here today on this very special academic design environment for a battle-hardened soldier is a great privilege. Thank you for inviting me. Members of the faculty, the Honorable Vice Chancellors, if you hear, the President, the students of Karnataka University, and all the friends, brothers, the youth, sisters, and each one of you who is present in this hall. Wishing you all an amazing day and an amazing life ahead. You know, in the army, we are a little stiff-necked. And yesterday you heard Prahlad Kakkar. He said that I have a military spine. Now usually people say, those who are third generation military people, they say, I have, OG blood flowing in my veins. But he said, I have an OG spine. Now what's the difference? When you say I have an OG blood, you're talking about patriotism. When you're talking about OG spine, you're taking patriotism to the level that you can defeat the enemy and lay down the sacrifice that is deserving of you, expected of you. So that's where the spine comes in. Why I'm referring is because the military way of life is very different. And it's also a paradox that I'm going to address an audience which I won't say is diametrically different, but is widely diversified from the military environment. And that's my challenge today, how to connect with this audience, which we all know as Generation X. Are all of you Generation X? Just raise your hands. I'm only addressing the people behind. Is anyone who's Generation Y here? All of you Generation X? Okay, great. So, the Generation X is, a different cup of tea. As ADG, Bihar and Jharkhand, I deal with youth a lot. When I did my MBA in National Cadet Corps, I was dealing with young minds like you who are doing MBA with me. And that's when I realized that dealing with the young lot takes a different cup of tea. And fortunately, I have had this exposure, and I hope I'm able to connect with you and convey what I'm trying to say today. We have the presentation on. Well, gentlemen. So this was the topic which I was given to by the Honorable Vice Chancellor, because when he invited me, though I do have a lot of domain knowledge on developing innovation, technology, etc., but my present appointment does not allow me to talk much about what the military needs are. I'm sure there are other speakers who are covering it, but I'm more about inspiring into innovation in design. So my first exposure to the military innovation, way back in 2001, the militancy was at peak in Kashmir. We were losing numerous lives because of one thing known as the RCIED, Remote Control IED, operating on the VHF band, 180 to 136 megahertz. And was playing very hell with the civilian life, with the movement of convoys, the movement of military personnel, and with our operations. And there was no solution. There was no solution even with the bigger powers, bigger military powers, because this was something unique. And we had to work out something. What did we do? We managed to capture a number of these RCIDs, remote control IDs, fortunately in a cache in one of the operations. And then we had about 30-40 of them. We started reverse engineering, understanding what it is. It was a radio chip which controlled the explosive. The point was when the explosive will go off, at what point in time. And how do you control it? How do you code it? There was no crypto mechanism those days. So they were using simple VHF, radio frequency, which is easily interceptable. And what they did, when we saw every bit of ID had 10 digits embossed on it. And we kept wondering, each 10 digit was different from the other. And we couldn't figure out what it was. So we put through a lot of our innovative minds, whatever we could get hold of, with the people from the signals branch and others. And finally we figured out that 10 digit was nothing, but the frequency mentioned in 6 digits in the last and the first 4 digits talking about the code which activates it. Now we had the secret. What do you do next? How to stop this? And that's where the innovation came. We tried to find solutions which are not available in the industry, because then we didn't have the advantage of people like listening to me. 1 and 2, we were not allowed to talk to the others. So we had to do something in-house. And what was that? We reverse engineered the whole thing and we had to find a counter to this. The way we found a counter was something innovative design. We managed to get hold of VHF transmitters, put them all together and did what is called as the barrage frequency jamming. That's the first step. After barrage frequency jamming, we moved on to the next step, as to sending these codes, the DTMF codes, through these frequencies in a sequential manner, running almost at the speed of 100 codes in maybe 30 seconds. That was the best speed we could achieve. Today I'm sure you can do 1,000 codes in half a second. But that's what best we could achieve then. And run these codes in a sequential manner, and we had to run some billions of codes over the period of 1 hour. So that when you run these codes on the DTMF signal, whatever IDs were planted in the morning would get detonated if we figured it was good. We were not sure if we would achieve success, because this was like a dream. But it took us 1+ year to know that this was getting successful. Because gradually, the remote control IDs operating in the VHF frequency started vanishing from the scene. And a few more incidents happened. The remote control IDs went off when the militants were planting it, because this remote control RCA, the counter mechanism, was detonated as it was being set and to activation. That, I felt, was an innovation. And so innovation is something that is here in the mind. And why I am trying to say that is what is my scope of today's lecture. You know Abdul Kalam, the father of India's scientific discovery and DRDO. The changing landscape, what's coming up? I just spoke about Taurus. That's the RCA equipment. The Generation Z, whom I'm probably addressing today, we have our IT Defense Innovation Cell and few other things I'd like to talk about: the risk profile matrix, doom taxonomy, comfort zone map, and the defenses that are essential and what the NCC can do. Well, the Generation Z is a threat of the military. You are very different. The reason I wore a t-shirt today and not formally dressed the way I am is hoping that I will protect you. But that's what you will wear. Alright. But that apart, so what is it? Does anyone disagree with what I'm saying? Probably I can add metaverse and cryptocurrencies here. Right? Well, so this is what it is. It's exactly what we don't need in the military. Especially in the opposite sides. But how do we connect? There's a chasm here. How do we close this chasm? And if you can close this chasm, I think we can create a wonderful world. Well, the good part is the same generation has some outstanding characters and qualities. And that's what is my hope. That's what I feel will make all the difference in the coming years. Yeah, next time, no doubt about it. They're proactive in what they want to do. They're not in reactive mode. They're not waiting for things to happen. They want to make things happen. They're mentally agile, adapted to change, not like us, who are bedded in wherever we are. They challenge status quo, the best thing to do. They're team-oriented, multitaskers, impatient, and they're adventurous. Adventure in every way. Adventure came into me. In the introduction, it was mentioned that I had an opportunity to go sail around the world in just a sailing boat. It had no engine. It had just sails, and 6 of us sailed around the world in 1989. Now that adventure is extreme adventure. But this adventure helps you to try out things. Now what Stanford University PhD research paper said, about innovation in design. I like this particular paragraph. Please go through. I kept wondering, what is the difference between innovation and design? Are they the same? Are they different? Are they together? Can they be divorced? Or is innovation leading to design, or is design leading to innovation? I don't think they have very many answers. There are very senior professors here who probably agree with me that it's very difficult to differentiate between the two. But this is something which sums up. What do you use your pointer in this? Can someone help me with the pointer? Okay. So, what is important here? This line, that they are divergent thinkers who are also observant, ingenious, confident, and persistent. Apart from the fact they are risk takers, they are the characteristics of designers, aspiring professionals. So, what's the risk profile? Indians, just a few years back, were known to have figured in the first quadrant. Risk averse. I come from Kerala, where all our parents teach us not to take risks. It's a different thing that I joined the armed forces. But even there, I'm taught avoid risks. We avoid risks with money, we avoid risks everywhere. But that's not true. That's actually not true. Indians are big risk takers. The point is whether you figure in the risk taker quadrant, or you figure in the risk manager quadrant, or you figure in the risk lover quadrant. So, a simple example. The motorcycle, when you want to drive it first, it looks like a very risky proposition. Your mother would never want you to drive. But then you go and somehow spend time with your friends or some peer group and somehow try to learn it. And that's when you become the risk taker. So you've taken the risk to drive something which is risky. And then what happens? Then one fine day, your mother notices you driving. And instead of admonishing you, starts admiring you and says, "Mom, beta, can you take me on the pillion?" Then you become a risk manager. Why? Because by then you have learned to drive this mobile in such a manner that you can manage the risk associated with accidents, driving, whatever. So that's a good risk management. So you go to the next level. But then instead of mother, when you make your girlfriend sit behind, you go to the last quadrant. That's when you become a risk lover. Right? So don't do that. Remain the risk manager quadrants. Okay. So what are the essential features of military design? I'm sure there are many features in design which your eminent professors are teaching you here. But I'm going to just bring you the 4 things that you need to remember when you design for the military, design for the armed forces. I'm not sure if there are people already here who are designing for the armed forces. I'm told that the class is yet to begin. But I'm just leaving this behind. That if you want your designs to succeed with the military, please use military grade material, which can withstand the heat, which can withstand the temperature, which can withstand dust and whatnot. It should be combat hardened. It should be able to survive under shelling conditions. When a soldier rolls over, falls over a cliff, and yet he needs to operate that. So it should be combat hardened. Definitely it should be innovative. That's the only way you can achieve the features. As innovative as it can be. That's the hallmark. And it needs to be soldier friendly. Because your soldiers are not the tech savvy people that you all are. They're simple townsmen. They come from the farming background. Majority of them. They're simple soldiers. They want simple gizmos, not the complex ones you all are used to. So that's where it comes soldier friendly. And jugaad, many of us use this word jugaad is innovation. For me, no, sorry, I don't agree with it. Jugaad is jugaad, just make it. And in military innovation, jugaad won't work because the last line, there are no runners-up in the war. You can have a runner-up in cross-country, you can have a runner-up in football, basketball. But in war, you've either done it or you've lost it. So there is no scope of jugaad here. Innovation better work. You can't fail a soldier. And that's where the indigenization is important. You heard the president of Ukraine yesterday. I'm sure all of you are following it. What did he say? He was offered an exit from the country. What did he say? Anyone? Yeah. There you are. Give me a big hand and he said, I want ammunition. Don't send me off this country. I want to be with my people. He doesn't have ammunition. Fight. Even though he knows that it's a fight against David and Goliath. But he still wants to fight. And he's not able to fight because he doesn't have ammunition. And that's where militarization comes in. We need to have the military stuff produced in India so that our soldiers don't have to look back across the shores. Well, what is the difference now? The biggest thing that's happening is that I'm standing in front of you as a serving officer. It never happened in the past. That's the difference. There was a huge chasm between the military and the academy and the private sector. There was no way you could interact with us except in a friendly tone. Definitely not professionally. Definitely not for buying equipment, except those who were following the processes. But this is changing, and changing for good. And this is what is going to make a difference. And I must compliment Karnataka University for having taken up and brought military people here to directly interact with you. My compliments to the university, the chairman, everybody, and all of you. So when you develop military technology, what you need is not merely addressing military use cases. Because at the end of the day, while the Indian Army is one of the largest armies in the world, it has the largest procurement needs, but still there's a limit to how much military can buy. And therefore, it will be smart if you can do what is called as a dual-use innovation, dual-use design and dual-use technology. And in your own area, the biggest thing that you need to drive, apart from the fact that you have a design support system, product development team, but it is innovation which will help you to reach into the Indian Army. And this I'm repeating time and again. Just a few slides which I thought many of you may have missed. I happened to attend this webinar just 2 days back. My slides, the slides of the Ministry of Defence. I'm just flashing it for you to go through to tell you what is the changing landscape, what is coming in, and why there is very bright future for the entire lot who's getting into the military technology, innovation and design. This is what it says. This is one of the topics I'm interested in being an I won't say educationist, but I have some interest in education. And I'm sure your illustrious professors are all aware of what I'm going to talk about. But there's something different I want to mention to the lot who's sitting here. So all of you are aware of this Bloom's taxonomy? Just raise your hands, the people in the back. Yeah, I'm sure the front runners would be aware of. Those at the back? Okay, so very few, right? Okay, then I'll just take half a minute to explain this. So what is Bloom's taxonomy? Benjamin Bloom in 1956 laid down the learning objectives that a learning institution needs to have when they are teaching students. And this was way back in 1956. And this is something which says that a university or a college or a school is a repository of knowledge. They provide knowledge to students. They were the only people who could provide knowledge. It wasn't aware anywhere else, except you had a friend who was very knowledgeable. But primarily you had to go there. And then they had to ensure that there is understanding, translation, summarizing in terms of comprehension is the job of the teachers. And then those who did this, take them to the next level of application of what you have comprehended. And thereafter we have the ability to analyze it, synthesize the information, and finally do the evaluation. It ended there with evaluation. Can you imagine? Some bit of synthesis was there. And this was the primary goals of education for a very long time, which India too adopted till very recently. Then what happened? In 2001, this changed. Gentlemen called Anderson and Karthwal, they reinvented it. They said, listen, just reaching the stage of evaluation, synthesis is not enough. There's more to it. So they changed, brought the evaluation down and removed this knowledge out. Why this knowledge was removed out? Is because now the universities and colleges are no more repositories of knowledge. No more the only repositories of knowledge. Today, knowledge or information, let's call it information or knowledge. Information is available galore everywhere. So the role of the universities in storing and being the repository has changed. It has a much bigger and much more responsible job to perform. The job of a teacher today is far more difficult than what it was some time back. Because it has to help the students climb this ladder rather than just giving information. That's a far more difficult job. And what is at the pinnacle of learning is creativity. That's where all of you come from. So if you're all here, it's because you're at the pinnacle of learning. But this pyramid is reducing in size. And as you see, the people who are reaching the creativity is a very pyramidical, steep pyramid. Handful reach in the higher education. That is what needs to change. And then what did someone do? They inverted this. Now this is what I want to share with you. What is this inverted pyramid? Beth Lewis and Ravina Inam from the Cantonment Polytechnic University. They said, why do we have a situation where the handful few people reach the level of creativity? Why can't we have an education system which helps more of you? All of you are selected lot coming from, I believe, the whole country. There are people from Maharashtra, Gujarat, Bombay, Kerala, possibly everywhere. And you are the handful picked lot. But if you really see in a college, how many reach on top? It's that handful few who reach the level of being able to create either a venture or a product or a design or an artwork or whatever. Handful few. Why can't we have more of them doing this? And this is what I said is the challenge in front of the professors today. How to create students and more number of students who are in this field. So this is just an example of how Bloom's taxonomy in the new version works in the digital industry, in the digital world. I'll just leave this slide behind for you. Someone can stop me if I'm running out of time. So how someone who's starts with the ability to identify a legitimate search engine ends up with someone who can launch and produce their own podcast. This is a simple example of reaching the different levels of learning. Is it structured? Are we doing structured method of helping people reach this level? Or is it happening by default? Or is it happening by just because you're there? This is something that we all need to look into. And I'm going to leave this decision tree behind by the Deloitte University Press, which gives out a very good roadmap on how to structure students or how to structure your curriculum in order to make your students or your institution design enablers. If you follow this flow chart, you won't be going very wrong. Due to paucity of time, I'm not going to go through this, but I'm sure some of you read it. It's quite self-explanatory, but it's very well done. What did the Economic Forum 2016 say? What is going to be the top skills for future job creation, the employers and the employees both? Complex problem solving, critical thinking. Yesterday I was having a discussion with the Vice Chancellor on this itself. People management, soft skills, emotional intelligence, soft skills, decision making, team leader. All these and many more are there, but these are identified as critical soft skills for you to be successful. So that's where my organization comes in. I'm also selling my organization here. Okay, that's where I come from. How do NCC cadets? How many of you have heard of NCC? Raise your hands, please. The backbenchers. Oh, great. That's a good lot. It's a good lot, right? So the National Cadet Corps is not about just parading. I'm sure you see a lot of cadets march past on the RD parade and Prime Minister honoring them and all those things. That's what you usually see. But I'm going to show you some glimpses of what the National Cadet Corps does over and above parading on Rajpath. This is what they do. They are exposed to the combat. They physically are allowed to go and ride a tank, see how it functions. They go and fire bullets. Here they're firing a ATGM. They go on attachment camps and train like the military. Why I'm showing you this? Because yesterday, the Chief of Army Staff made one mention. And that's when I added these slides. He said that before you design for the military, become one, at least mentally. only then your designs will be useful to the military. And how do you become one? You can't. It's very difficult because you have your classes to attend, you have your routines to follow, and plus you can't give full time there. So the way to partially do it is use this methodology. And what I'm showing you here are models. Well, we have amongst us today someone who vouches for his NCC days, for what made him today what he is. May I request Leo Peter to please stand up and just share his experience of his NCC days.
Good morning, everyone. So I am an alumni of One Karnataka Air Squadron 2008 batch. Luckily, I am in this space because I started aero modeling when I was an NCC cadet. And the first time I ever flew an aircraft, so a lot of you might not know, 40 hours of flying is free in the NCC. So if you join an air squadron, there are a lot of NCC air squadrons across the country. You get to fly an aircraft which otherwise would cost you lakhs. But apart from that, the exposure that you get at the NCC is what steals you in life. So if you're doing parade and you faint, they will make you sit for some time and then they will not say, do you want to go home? You'll ask, when can you join back into the parade, right? So life's not fair like that, and that's where NCC makes you strong. And the exposure you get to the armed forces and armed forces way of life is also what creates closeness to them. And the easiest way then to get connected to the armed forces is through your commanding officer at the NCC. And I've also had the opportunity of training cadets in aero modeling at my battalion after I graduated. And today I am here in the drone space is because it all started way back in 2008 when I started building models at NCC for control line flying and RC flying. So that's why I always say everybody has to go through NCC, and that way we would have more creators, more innovators, and more entrepreneurs whose character is already built to face challenges and to build solutions for the country. So that's my bet.
So that's a true NCC cadet speaking. And just by coincidence, I met him here. And by another coincidence, just this morning, I met the person who just honored me, Mr. Vivek. Is he here? Dr. Vivek. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, please come, sir. He is also an ex-NCC cadet and possibly one of the best designers you have. Please listen into him. Sir, come over.
Thank you. Well, just like Peter mentioned, it all started. I'm cadet 1980, and having those 3 years and later on in college another 2 years of NSS, that put me into the stream of very different, I would say, like you said, how do you match creativity with this? But it happened with me, making models. I was in the naval wing, so making models of ships, and that put me into the stream of going into sculpture when I went into college and not choosing any other stream. Which again gave me the opportunity to build the tableau for Bachandri when she went into the Everest for 26 January. This was 1984. Yes, and we were just sharing all this. In fact, I always felt that why not NCC be made compulsory for schools and colleges, and a 1-year army training after undergraduate or during undergraduate.
So well said. So ladies and gentlemen, that's what the NCC does for you. It puts in creativity, it gives you modeling skills, it helps you build solutions, it helps you face problems, it helps build what is inherently known as problem solving and critical thinking skills. Because when you put through a camp where nothing is in your favor, and you spend those 10 days there, going through the rigmarole of what happens there, and yet produce all these what Mr. Vivek just said and what Leo just said, it brings in the real creativity in you. And that's what I say that the NCC does with all this. And here's more. This, gentlemen and ladies, is the highest battlefield of the world. And when you innovate and design something that needs to survive here, it is a different ball game altogether. Never seen extremes of climate, temperature, conditions. So when I said, what are the 5 features a military design must have, this is one of those. And this beats everything. Well, so if you all are ready for this, then you need to get out of your comfort zone. It's a beautiful comfort zone exit map, which is simple to follow, but if you follow methodically, many of us, I was a young boy like you some time back, and I was in this comfort zone, feel safe and in control, and your mother's safety. But you got to get out of that. How do you get out of that? From comfort zone, you have to enter the fear zone, which is what many of us go through when we are youth, and then to the learning zone and finally the growth zone. And this applies to entrepreneurs, it applies to everybody. This is a good way of achieving that. So I'll close with a few inspiring quotes about creativity, design and innovation. What did Michael Dell say? Don't fear, experiment like crazy. What did the chairman of Adventure Holdings say? Don't just innovate for the sake of innovation. Go for solving problems. Another CEO of Ubing Gaming Company, let go of ideas. Let it be crazy as crazy as it wants, as long as you know what goal you want to achieve. There are no bad ideas. What did Jeff Bezos say about India? 21st century will belong to India. The dynamism, the energy, self-improvement, and the growth here is palpable. And that's what I see amongst the youth who are sitting in front of me. And the greatest scientist of all, the Albert Einstein, what did he say? And this is I want to leave behind with you, because this is what we advocate in NCC. That most people say it is the intellect which makes a great scientist. Yes, you definitely need intellect. There are a lot of people with intellect. But what makes a great scientist is character. And what is character? It's about integrity, professional integrity. And what do you do? There's something very underlying. And we can't close these quotes without referring to our own father of innovation and scientific discovery. What did he say? Creativity is seeing the same thing, but thinking differently. And his best line is what I like here. And that's where I have hope on those last benches are sitting there. They are the ones who will make all the difference. And they make all the difference always. Well, that's all for today. Jai Garvi Gujarat. Jai Hind.